welcome back. So today we are going to talk about markets. Markets have recovered smartly from their March lows, with Nifty and Sensex gaining around 50% from their lows that we saw in March. Now, what should be done in such kind of markets? What should be your strategy? Should you stick to the blue chips only, the frontliners only, or you can have a bit of mix of mid cap and small caps too, which are good quality stocks? What is making the markets move higher? Why is markets decoupling from the state of economy? Events that will decide the market trend. And the most important of it is the recent news reports which have been saying that the retail investors can now trade directly through exchanges. How is it going to change the way retail investors invest? Is it proper to do so? And upfront margins that recent SEBI guidelines have come. How is it going to affect the retail investors? To talk about all this, today I have a special guest with me, Mr. Avinash Gorakhsakar. He is Head Research, Profit Mart Securities. Hi Avinash, how are you?
Yeah, fine, Gitu.
Avinash, let's talk about markets first. We have seen a very smart recovery in Nifty and Sensex, 50% bounce from the March lows. But yet we talk about the economy, state of economy. It's really decoupled. Economy is not doing good at all. We all know about that, and that's a fact not for India only, but globally. But markets are moving high, and every investor is coming and saying that ऐसा हो क्यों रहा है? तो आप इसके बारे में क्या कहें?
See, I think Gitu, one thing is very clear that markets are not looking at fundamentals at all. In fact, the recent Q1 numbers which have come out, in the last 1 to 2 weeks, have clearly depicted that quarter one has been a complete washout quarter. In fact, April and May have been lockdown months, so obviously, everyone expected that numbers were not going to be great. What the market is obviously looking at is what is the kind of future outlook and the growth commentary given out by these management, because as everyone knows, the market doesn't look at history, it looks at the future and the growth possibilities ahead. More importantly, I think the markets have run up from the lows of 23rd March, when the first lockdown was announced, when the market touched 7,500 to now levels of almost 11,300 today, is largely because there's been a large dose of liquidity which has come from central banks across the globe. And I think, in this rally, one cannot ignore the fact that the Fed as well as the European banks have been largely responsible for this, humongous kind of rally which has happened. In fact, you have been right in saying that on ground fundamentals yet don't seem to be great. In fact, we are yet seeing that sectors like automobiles, capital goods, aviation, entertainment, construction, these are sectors which are yet to show any big recovery. But stock prices have continued to go up. My only answer would be, that it's only a matter of time before liquidity, stabilizes, eases, and at that point, maybe valuations could possibly become a little attractive. But at this point of time, it's largely a trading market. One has to be a little careful in, selecting stocks for the portfolio.
So there's a question which arises in everybody's mind. अभी हम ब्लू चिप्स में इन्वेस्ट करें जो कि अब थोड़े बहुत ऊपर लेवल्स पे आ चुके हैं, या अब मिड कैप्स और स्मॉल कैप में भी कुछ ऐसे क्वालिटी स्टॉक्स हैं जो हमको लेने चाहिए? तो ऐसे में आप क्या सजेस्ट करें?
See, I think everybody's portfolio depends on the risk appetite an investor wants. Largely, I think, if you want to have an optimum mix, I think you should try to include about 70 to 80% of the frontliners, and around 15 to 20% you can definitely include the quality mid caps, which can give you a very good alpha over the next, say, 12 to 18 months or 2 years. Largely, the reason why I'm saying this is because frontliners, companies definitely have the potential to bounce back quickly, and they have a stronger balance sheet, they have a huge kind of brand equity which can actually help them. So my sense is that investors should actually start buying these stocks on a SIP basis. Maybe don't buy everything in one kind of lot, and cash needs to be preserved. So I think you will get a chance to buy these stocks at lower levels. But yes, I think companies which are rock solid, which have got good balance sheet, which have got a good B2C model, I think one can definitely start on a SIP basis. And entering mid caps, you don't have to look at the index. You just have to see the business model, the cash flow, the earnings growth, and I think market will present good opportunities. Overall, I think the portfolio construction may take a little time, but I think this proper process can actually help the investor to remain on the winning side.
So as you rightly said, Avinash, So जब traders market की हम बात करते हैं, there's a rush of new investors coming into the markets now. Recently, if we see the reports suggesting that 25 lakh new accounts have been opened, demat accounts have been opened in last couple of months. So this rush of retail coming into the market without knowing the ABCD of what the stock market is all about, how do you think that they should deal with the markets? I mean, उनको कुछ नहीं पता, उनको सिर्फ ये पता है कि अगर इस शेयर में ये इस शेयर की बात की जा रही है, इसको ले लो और मुनाफा होगा, बट वो लॉस को अभी देख के नहीं चल रहे.
बिल्कुल Gitu, I think I agree to your point fully, and as I've been telling everybody else also that these are basically Robin Hood investors who have entered the markets for the first time without any knowledge or without any experience. And frankly, my thesis to this is that unless investors see a downfall, making returns is not going to be easy. So I've been in the market since 1992. I've seen 2008. One has to see a good bear market to actually make money. It's not so easy to make money on the markets. So clearly these 25 lakhs investors who have entered the markets, clearly what has happened is most of the people are working from home. Corporates are now asking people to work from home, and the new generation Robinhood investors have the internet. They've got access to a lot of advisory websites. They don't look at the quality of the business. They just look at the price momentum, and I think this is definitely a dangerous trend. It could obviously mean good business for CDSL or the retail brokers, but frankly, this kind of rush is definitely a scary thing. And unless investors are educated and they take really quality long-term calls, it could be a very negative kind of experience for them. So I would only advise that be careful when you put any buying or selling transaction, because this market is extremely volatile. It could turn anyways, and these people have no experience on ground, so it's purely a first-time effort. So, I mean, net, I would say that it's better to, play it safe rather than being very adventurous, because, capital erosion obviously, means that your entire capital market journey actually halts, and that creates a bad experience.
Very true, very true. So let's talk about the recent developments, Avinash. We had upfront margin requirement for cash segment also, which SEBI has come out with rules. Is it going to impact the retail investors in some way?
In fact, Gitu, it would impact investors who actually trade on the cash segment. Whatever rules I have read out, I think 2-3 things are very important. The regulations which have not yet come into effect, but obviously which should come into effect from 5th of August, say that you need to have adequate cash balance with the broker before you buy a security or even sell a security. So if you have to sell a particular share, then either you need to have those shares in the demat account of the which is affiliated to that broker, or you need to have sufficient cash, because otherwise the broker will demand a margin for even shares which are sold. And secondly, you need to instruct the broker whether the shares are pledged, unpledged, because there are a lot of clients who take positions, leverage margin positions on pledged shares. So that has also got to be instructed to the broker. And most importantly, I think the intraday business, typically the BTST calls, the intraday call, these are typical segments which are actually going to be impacted heavily. That is why the broker community is also worried. And obviously, the guys who actually do BTST and intraday calls are definitely now going to find it pretty tougher unless they have margins. It won't be possible for them to rotate their capital that fast. So I think net, it's going to be a little dampener in the near term. And we really don't know what's going to be the impact, how well the system stabilizes there.
So what is the volumes that you see falling because of this? I mean, 20-30%?
Yeah, I think if you see the way the markets have gone up, I think broadly, if you see not more than 10% of the volume, both the BSE and the NSE, you get delivery volumes. So almost 80 to 90% volume is basically, the speculative, trading volume. And out of that, I think a major chunk, almost 75 or maybe 80% is from the F&O business. Now, for the cash business, it may not be a very large portion, but a lot of people actually follow F&O counters and buy, and do intraday or BTST on the cash counters. So cash volumes could definitely be impacted significantly, and that is definitely not a good sign, because in these challenging times, brokers would obviously feel that that business could get lost if there are some more strict regulations imposed by the regulator.
One more thing which we have recently read is about that exchanges could start, giving a trading platform for retail investors directly. What will that mean? I mean, you can trade directly through exchanges. You don't have to go to a broker or a sub broker. So won't this change the entire dynamics?
I think Gitu, this is a proposal yet. It is not yet finalized, but
Yeah.
this kind of mechanism is already available with mutual funds. If you observe the mutual fund basket, there is a direct mechanism where the investor can go to the directly to the mutual fund house, buy and sell securities. But
Mm.
despite that, not many investors go and do it directly just to save the fee structure of the advisor. So they do require the inputs from the financial advisors. And as far as equity markets are concerned, I think it's going to be a very adventurous kind of proposal, because this is unlikely to actually add any value to retail investors. I would believe that brokers definitely add a lot of value in terms of servicing, in terms of giving research service, in giving a lot of support to their clients. So I think once an investor does directly, he's really left all alone. I mean, he has to take the final call. If anything goes wrong, then I think it's between him and the exchange, and we really don't know what's the sustainability of the software, whether there's a kind of a technical error, or maybe a lot of things which are yet unknown. So my sense is that it's difficult to believe whether retail investors would actually opt for this in a big way. Maybe
Mm.
some volumes would get impacted, but longer term, I don't think clients are not going to go to brokers or maybe online platforms and trade via the broker. So that presence will definitely continue to see. So this is definitely just premature to say, but yes, longer term, I think we'll have to see how it actually shapes up. But my personal view is this may not actually give any added value to the retail investor.
Okay, let's move back to markets now. Tell me, Avinash, we just spoke about the economy. It is not in good shape at all. People are losing jobs. And when we come to sectors like FMCG, we say that rural demand is going to drive this sector much more than the urban demand. I mean, urban, yes, there has been a spending on FMCG products. People have been buying. Rural, it is expected that the kind of stimulus that has been provided to them, that this might lead to some kind of a spending from that side. With all these floods happening in Assam and then Bihar, how do you think this is going to pan out? I mean, is rural demand really sufficient to support the kind of demand that we had seen in 2019-18 years?
See, my guess is, the rural demand will definitely show some better signs compared to urban markets, primarily because, monsoon is a big derived factor. And I think this year, hopefully, despite the COVID-19, monsoon has been one factor which has been very positive. We have got good rain still now. My sense is that we may not see any big significant volume growth for any product categories, at least for the next 1 or 2 quarters. I mean, one could see some recovery happening maybe in the third quarter ending December, and
Mm.
any significant rally or maybe rise could be seen only in FY22. So FY21, my personal view is that it could be a washout. In fact, you rightly mentioned that floods in Assam and Bihar are going to actually compound matters, because purchasing power is going to go down, volumes are going to remain stagnated, and I think even if there is a big brand pull or maybe a mass kind of product which people consume, pricing
Right.
pressure is going to be there. So we have seen companies like Nestle, or for that reason, even companies like Hindustan Lever, where volume growth has gone into the negative side. So typically, I think at least another 6 to 12 months you'll have to wait before you see some sort of green shoots happening here, and then only I think one can give a reasonable belief that this could get converted into better numbers.
Mm. What's your take on auto sector, Avinash? I mean, we have seen that good recovery in all these shares like Maruti, M&M, Tata Motors, uh, and two-wheelers, Hero Moto and Bajaj Auto. It is expected that two-wheelers might do better than the four-wheelers, with some kind of a demand coming from the rural sectors also. So, auto space, should we really invest at these levels in the frontline auto space or the mid-cap auto companies?
See, I think my guess is there are going to be some pockets of opportunity in auto. I think you rightly mentioned that two-wheelers could be a pocket where recovery could happen faster. But I think if you look at segments like passenger cars or commercial vehicles, I think I would not be surprised that FY21 would be a complete washout for most of the players. As far as tractor segment is concerned, I think there have been some green shoots which have been visible. Obviously, numbers have not been all that great in the very near term, into the agro or maybe the agri implement space should do well, because obviously the agriculture output would continue to do well, and there is a decent amount of purchasing power there. So broadly, I would suggest that this is not the right time to actually rush in and buy any auto companies. I think we could possibly see a decent kind of entry point maybe after a couple of quarters. Companies like Maruti Suzuki, my sense is that the first first quarter of FY21, the company could show a negative bottom line despite being a market leader and having virtually no debt on the books. So I think,
And that will be for the first time.
Yeah.
If that happens, that will be for the first time in the
Yeah, that
history
is
of
true.
market.
But I think markets are flying on the fact that everybody's looking at FY22. As I said, Gitu, in most of the automobile companies, analysts are not looking at FY21 at all. They are looking at FY22. So I think that is definitely a good factor. But considering the kind of uncertainty, COVID is still spreading. Till yesterday, almost 47,000 active cases came in. We are now close to 15 lakh numbers. We are now one of the fastest growing COVID regions in the world. So I think this is definitely going to create a lot of uncertainty, and on ground, I've not heard people buying automobiles, left and right. So it's going to take a long time. Maybe from the third quarter, hopefully when things get normalized, things could improvise. But at this point of time, I would avoid getting into autos and stay a little cautious, because clearly, the volume numbers are not picking up as per what the prices are actually reflecting. So it's better to avoid as of.
Let's talk about the banking space, Avinash. Banking में अभी हमने कुछ statements RBI गवर्नर से सुनी थी कि NPA levels जो है वो banking sector के लिए और बढ़ सकते हैं, should be somewhere around 12% of NPAs for all the entire banking system. With that kind of a concern in mind, what would you prefer investing in? The frontline private sector banks or some of the good PSU sector banks?
No, I think, when you mentioned that NPAs are going to be almost 10% of the book, a larger chunk of this bad asset quality is going to be coming on the PSU banks. And I think there's definitely some increasing noise from the government as well as from industries, people, that some sort of further, capitalization would happen for the PSU banks. And you'll be not be surprised to see that apart from the frontline players like maybe an SBI or a Bank of Baroda, I think the smaller PSU banks are going to face the bigger brunt of poor asset quality. And I would not be surprised that a large amount of their assets would actually never be paid. So moratoriums for these PSU banks are definitely a risky number. I would not be surprised if this number actually elevates further. And as far as the private sector banks are concerned, here also, you've got to look at banks which have got a good retail and a good corporate book combination. I think, I would be more comfortable with banks which have got a very stable track record of asset quality, a strong loan book growth, a very strong geographical base, a very good CASA, because, finally, at the end of the day, the retail is one segment which is going to help these banks recover faster. And I think moratorium numbers have come down quite significantly, for players like Axis Bank, ICICI Bank, or typically even a Bandhan Bank. So I would believe that, people should look at these banks from a longer term perspective, because banking is one space, which cannot be ignored by any long term investor. Financials are those stocks where you could get a maximum risk reward kind of alpha. So typically, look at some corrections whenever these stocks come down for whatever reason. I think that could be a good opportunity to buy into these stocks on a SIP basis, because recovery in FY22 looks possible. I think looking at the commentary from ICICI Bank, Bandhan Bank or Axis Bank, moratoriums have come down, which in itself is a very positive sign, because it means that the bank is working hard in recovering these assets. But the only point is, if RBI, extends this moratorium beyond 31st August, then I think it's going to be a negative surprise. That is something which, people like Deepak Parekh have also gone on record saying that please don't allow moratoriums to be extended, because that could actually hurt the balance sheets further.
Talking about the PSU banks, Avinash, we lately heard that there might be consolidation happening, and government is in favor of having 4 to 5 big banks, and rest of the banks will be privatized. If so happens, do you see really a scope of that happening? I mean, it has been very difficult. अगर disinvestment process हम सरकार का देखें तो वहाँ पे अभी तक कोई भी उनको सफलता मिली नहीं है. Be it BPCL, yes, we are hearing that it is near closure. There are some interest which has come in with BPCL, but Air India, nothing has happened with the disinvestment proceeds. If we see this year, because of has been next to nil. I mean, with all this happening, what do you really see privatization of PSU banks happening?
No, I think the bigger issue is, who will buy these PSU banks? Because Gitu, frankly, most of the private sector banks have got a very large customer base, a fairly good geographical network. I think, PSU banks are going to struggle despite the fact that consolidation will happen. एक बात ठीक है कि consolidation, if it happens, it will actually reduce the number of banks, which is humongously very large. But at
Mm.
the end of the day, the management quality, the credibility, the track record, the balance sheet, and the service quality to customers is going to be extremely important. Even today, if you see the PSU banks, what they lack is service quality. What they lack is, the kind of managerial risk which private sector banks take. And I think it's going to be a long way. So I would not be surprised that this PSU divestment will actually not yield any big money for the government. Although, it might happen that, some business groups may look at entering the
Mm.
banking sector via this divestment kind of route. But overall, I would believe that for a retail investor to invest in these PSU banks, I don't think one should be when one should actually go for these PSU banks, because going forward, unless there is some dramatic change on the managerial side and on the capital side, I won't be surprised re-rating won't happen. So it's better to just see what action the government takes as far as Air India, or for that reason BPCL is concerned. BPCL is a much more strategic asset, and I won't be surprised that maybe November, December things stabilize. They could get a decent kind of premium, because it has got good assets on its books, and
Mhm.
obviously strategic, and a lot of domestic investors are interested in that asset. But as far as Air India is concerned, again, aviation is unlikely to take off at least for the next 12 to 18 months. I would not be surprised that losses, as well as the kind of problems the aviation industry is going to face, is going to be so soon taken off the radar. So I think aviation, possibly, looking at Air India, I think it's going to be a non-starter. So clearly, divestment is something the government is going to face a big problem in the next year's budget. All the programs and all the divestment targets will have to be reworked in the given current COVID scenario.
In a couple of sessions, we have seen a good smart recovery in stocks like BHEL, BEL, again the PSEs. Uh, uh, are they on your radar? I mean, would you be investing in such kind of stocks? If their business model is, if we discuss their business model, that is appropriate. I mean, there's nothing wrong with their business model, but what is inaction, inefficiency, and not being efficient, which is making these companies lag behind. But now, this Atmanirbhar Bharat that we all speak about, are these companies going to be in focus for, say, next 6 to 10 months?
See, I think the government's intention and Mr. Modi's vision has been quite good on making India self-reliant by this program Atmanirbhar Bharat. But on ground, if you see these companies, to expect some results from these companies in a very short time, Gitu, is definitely something way beyond their capability. I think companies like BHEL, frankly, the kind of collection efficiency and the working capital management which this company does is way below companies like Larsen and Toubro and some other engineering companies. So the point is, these companies have been moving up more on news flows and more on sentiments rather than on actual earnings numbers. I would be
Mhm.
surprised that capital goods sector prima facie is going to face the brunt, because in these difficult times we have been talking to many corporates. They have been actually telling us that we are going to cut down our corporate capex at least for the next 6 to 12 months. So that
Right.
means less business for these guys. And
Mhm.
more importantly, I think if you ask me whether as companies from the defense space would do well, defense is definitely going to do well, because we are seeing a lot of incentivization given by the government. But remember, this is a lumpy business. Defense companies don't grow in quarter on quarter, but they grow over the next 2 to 3 years. So I think companies like BEL, or for that reason Bharat Dynamics, or typically whichever companies in the defense space, one investor needs to take a longer term call. And obviously
Mhm.
business will come, but it's going to come with their shares of ups and downs. So defense could be a better space, but as far as BHEL or the capital goods space is concerned, I think it's better to stay away. Clearly, maybe FY21 is ruled out. Maybe FY22, when macro numbers improve and the economy's condition becomes much healthier, at that point, markets would obviously see these numbers coming, because the execution is going to be extremely bad in this kind of COVID scenario.
Right. Right. Talking about pharma as a sector has been underperforming, and it's now this year when the COVID started, the pharma sector picked up and it has outperformed the broader markets. In pharma space, what do you like?
So I think within the pharma space, we like a combination of companies which are, having a decent market share on the US markets, and obviously which have got a large domestic share, and which have got an integrated API model. I think API business has now become extremely profitable. And now with China out of the market, most companies, both domestic as well as globally, are now looking at India as a sourcing base for APIs, which eventually is the building block for the final formulation. So I would believe that investors should look at either standalone API players. They should also look at companies which have got a large exposure on the US market, and obviously which have got a large formulation and a branded market share in the domestic market. If you were to ask me which companies, I think we are positive on companies like Sun Pharma or Torrent Pharma, or maybe even a IOL Chemicals, which is a very large player of ibuprofen in the US. So, despite the fact that these companies have gone up, my sense is this rally is not going to peter off. It will continue because earnings numbers are coming out pretty solid. And within this space, if one were to look at some sort of blue chips, then I think the MNC companies, something like a Abbott Laboratories or maybe something like a Sanofi, could also be looked upon because these are well established players. Despite the fact that these command fairly rich valuations, I would believe that one has to be slightly longer term when one looks at these companies rather than taking a 6 to 12 months call. If one takes a 2 to 3 year call, I think the risk reward could definitely come in. But pharma as a business, we are definitely positive, and we feel that yes, in a portfolio for any investor, there should be a presence of a decent pharma exposure in their overall kind of position.
There's quite a bit of churning if you see in the Nifty stocks. एक हफ्ते आपका आईटी चलता है, दूसरे हफ्ते थोड़ा बैंक में मोमेंटम अच्छा देखने को मिलता है, तीसरे हफ्ते सीमेंट स्टॉक्स होते हैं, चौथे हफ्ते ऑटो स्टॉक्स होते हैं. अब ऐसी ही चर्निंग चलती रहेगी या किसी सेक्टर पे आपको लगता है कि एक सेक्टर है जिसने अभी तक परफॉर्म नहीं किया और आगे आने वाले समय में परफॉर्म कर सकता है?
Yeah, I think my sense is, this entire market, Geetu, if you ask me frankly, has been driven largely by the move in Reliance. I think Reliance Industries has been one of the frontliners. And if you ask me, apart from Reliance, I think on a week to week basis, we get to see sometimes cement stocks run up, sometimes, metal companies run up, sometimes, IT companies run up. So my sense is, these kind of churning activities in the markets will continue to go on. This is a clear indication of what the traders think in the short term. But longer term, I think if one were to build a portfolio, Gitu, my advice would be that one should not ignore financials, one should not ignore pharma, one should not ignore consumption, and one should not ignore IT. These are building blocks for a portfolio which could add significant value over the next 2 to 3 years. And I think these markets will present a good opportunity. Whenever you see a market correction in these sectors, I think that's the best way to accumulate because unfortunately on a week to week basis, it's not always possible to actually make that trading gain on a consistent basis. So I think
Right.
this will continue.
And what about Reliance? I mean, it's nearing 2200 now.
I think Gitu, this is one of the most stocks which actually everybody ignored. On 23rd March, the stock was 875, and now it is almost 2200. And the kind of money raised by Mr. Ambani has been really excellent. In fact, that shows the kind of confidence global investors have in this company. And the AGM, which happened, recently, also showed that the company is really on a strong growth path. But coming to the stock price, Gitu, my sense is that now, after so many announcements, after so much cash coming on the books, the story is out. Now, markets would obviously look at the execution part. बहुत बातें हो गई है, promises हो गए हैं. लेकिन अभी markets will look at the execution part. If there is a delay in execution and there is a let up in execution, the markets would not like it. And I think in the next 2 to 3 quarters, whatever news flows come on the Geomart business, on the Aramco business, on the oil and gas business, I think markets will be closely looking at execution. So, it may consolidate for some time. I wouldn't be surprised that you could see higher levels going forward. But in the very near term, this kind of stock at this valuations definitely now looks that most of the news is now factored into the price. So I would be, a positive buyer on Reliance only if it corrects, significantly, and definitely a buyer on declines. But at these levels, Gitu, I think one cannot expect a very significant risk reward because, in the last 3 4 months, a large cap stock like Reliance has already, moved by more than 100% odd. So, long term prospects are good, but short term, I think it will consolidate.
वो 10 साल सोया भी तो था अविनाश जी, वो तो आप भूल गए. वो तो अब जागा है, तो अब जाग के उसने 100% आपको.
I think the business has changed, Gitu. I think people don't like the traditional oil and gas business, but today, internet, typically data, mobile, these are businesses which obviously will get significant valuations. And I think, they have obviously divested that business primarily to ensure that whatever investments they made, on the oil and gas business plus the geo business, I think that has been a very good strategy from the management. But as you realize, see, every share is good at a particular price. So today at 2200, if somebody gets in, the risk reward is definitely not going to be as attractive as what it was in the month of March or April. We should be careful. I think nothing is bad, but at what price you enter and what's the risk reward, I think that is something investors should keep in mind.
Sector that you will stay away from, Avinash.
I think I would stay away from entertainment and aviation. These are two sectors which I don't think are going to pick up in the year FY21. Although there have been some news reports, Gitu, that possibly in the next 8 to 10 days, multiplexes could be opened with some sort of social distancing norms. My sense is this will only create a sentimental booster for these stocks. But if you look at the financial impact, PVR as well as Inox and even companies like SpiceJet or Indigo, I think you could see very bad numbers for the next 2 to 3 quarters. And I think there's no need to hurry because COVID cases are increasing across India, and I think a lot of regulations could come in if situation doesn't improve fast. So I would believe that just keep away from these. Of course, from an investment perspective, from a trading perspective, people might look at these companies for earning the momentum from these companies, but from an investment point of view, I think it's still better to avoid.
So if I have to build a portfolio, Avinash, 3 stocks that I need to buy.
I think I would believe that I think I would put my bet on something like consumption, and in consumption, I would look at maybe companies like Britannia, because Britannia is one company where my sense is that people are working from home. COVID is still very active, so I think the kind of product categories Britannia makes,
Right.
biscuits, cheese, bread, this is going to definitely continuously see quality consumption from a lot of urban as well as rural markets. So Britannia could be a buy on declines. The second stock could be companies like which are not affected by COVID at all. For example, there are many companies which operate in the power trading space. I believe there's a company called Indian Energy Exchange. Now this company is basically a power trading platform, which is an electronic trading platform, and which has got a very asset light model. The stock has not run up at all, but if you see the business model, my sense is that over the next second or third quarter of this year, volumes could come back, and power as a kind of as a product is a very virtual necessity. So this could be a very good deep value pick. If somebody wants to take a 12 to 18 month call, the stock has been trading low, so you get an opportunity to buy. And the third would be the pharma space. I'm personally very positive on companies like typically the MNC companies like Pfizer and Sanofi, where I would believe that one should look at these companies not from a 6 to 12 months perspective, but from a 2 to 3 year perspective, because the kind of opportunities I see from the COVID vaccine as well as typically from the domestic kind of product business, there's ample opportunity. People look at price earning multiples and stay away from these companies, but I think if you take a 2 to 3 year call, I would not be surprised. The compounded growth here could be at least 20-25% over the next 3 years. So, one has to be safe and one has to be very meticulous in selecting their companies, and, keep a SIP approach. I think people should realize that you won't be able to buy everything in one shot. Try to buy, small lots in small pieces. And I think slowly one can construct a portfolio and, definitely be well prepared for the next kind of bull run.
Right. 3 things you would ask a fresh investor who is entering the market to keep in mind before investing.
I think, from a fundamental perspective, I can tell you, because my expertise is on the fundamental side. First is understand the business. If the business is not understood by you, or if it is a very complex business, please stay away from it. Because, before I personally invest in a company, I look at the business. If the business model is sufficiently strong to last for the next 5 to 10 years, that's definitely a good entry point. Second is, what is the quality of management? Because when you see management, you have to observe only two things. How well they have rewarded their shareholders in terms of dividends, and secondly, any corporate governance kind of practices which they follow. Any misgovernance obviously nowadays gets reported very fast, so it's very easy for investors to actually go either to Toffler or they can go on Google. You can find out this very easily. And the third important thing, Gitu, is a company which does not generate any operating cash flow for a consistently long period, I think is definitely untouchable, because finally numbers have to be factored into, however good the management or the product or the business may be. Finally, if the numbers don't stand out in the cash flows, then I think that could definitely be a kind of a negative surprise. And avoid debt companies. Typically work for companies which are less leveraged on the balance sheet, and where you find that most of the expansion is done out of their own internal accrual. So debt is definitely a kind of a area where investors should clearly watch. So broadly, 3-4 things which an investor should do before they invest in companies, so that later on they don't regret their choices.
Thank you, Avinash, for sharing time. It was very nice speaking to you after such a long time.
Thank you, Gitu.
Thank you so much, Avinash.